Action Comics number 16, written by Grant Morrison, art by Rags Morales and Brad Walker. So, last issue, Vinny, I said I'd call him Vinny, was attacking Superman all throughout his life. And it doesn't get any easier to explain. So, pick up 3030. We're in Legion of Superheroes territory, but everything is like awful and terrible. And we see the Legion of Superheroes characters who are now like 40s, give or take. They're sneaking their way into a building and trying to get to something. And as they make their way in, they're knocking out guards. They're using their powers to like blend in and like make it appear that they're actually science police until they finally get to the place they're going. And we see the main group is Lightning Man, Cosmic Man, and Saturn Woman. But there's also Chameleon, one called Censor, Umbra is one of them. And then there's like one that's tiny. Shrinking Violet. There she is. So anyway, they made their way in, and turns out the entire reason they're doing this mission is to get to the last remaining time bubble, time sphere. And as they get in, the guards are already on them. They're firing. The one, which is like a snake monster named Censor, he holds off the guards long enough for them to fix the time rotor in order to go back in time. And they're like, okay, we got to go back and we have to save Superman. So they hop in, the three main ones that I said, they hop in the time bubble and they make their way back. Picking up yesterday, according to this, Lois Lane and Jimmy are told by Clark to meet at the memorial where Superman died. Now, because of all the timey-wimey stuff going on, I don't know if this is an event that did happen already, or it's going to be reverted, or what. But they call it Doomsday, and they say this is where Superman died and came back. They don't say that the monster was called Doomsday. They say the day he died was Doomsday. Either way, stuff's going on. So then the entire sky turns red, and there's a giant fiery meteor coming out. And wouldn't you know it, it's Superman fighting against Zadu, who I believe was part of the issue around Halloween, somewhere around there. He came out of the Phantom Zone. Anyway, he's fighting against Zadu, and he's calling out over to Lois and Jimmy. He's like, Lois, Jimmy, I need you to get to Metropolis General and find Mr. Triple X. Go do that. And he keeps on fighting, and Lois and Jimmy are like, Mr. Triple X, what? What? So at that point, Lois turns around and she sees Susie, her niece, who has super duper mind powers. And she's like, hey, I'm in Superman's head right now, and I'm making him feel the suffering of every living being on Earth. And Lois is like, why are you hurting Superman? Why would you do that? And Susie's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to, but I made a deal with the tiny man. So at that point, we see the fight between Superman and Zadu, and Superman, he's struggling through the pain of the suffering of everybody, but he does manage to land enough blasts on Zadu to unravel the bandages that are keeping him together. And at that point, Jimmy comes up like, hey, Superman, are you cool? And he's like, Jimmy, did I not tell you to go to the hospital? Go do it now. And at that point, they start making their way out there. But then we see in what is essentially the Times Square of Metropolis, Vinny's there. He's taken over all the screens, and his giant demonic form is there in the middle. And he's like, hey, everybody, I have a deal to make with you, all the people of Earth. I will give you life eternal in my kingdom forever and ever. And all you have to do is when Superman asks for help, you say no. Sound good? So that was yesterday. This is now. And we see Superman being attacked by the anti-Superman team, league, cadre, whatever you want to call them. And he's super depowered because the Kryptonite gang, they are able to mimic the effects of kryptonite. One of them's green, which has blood poisoning. One of them's red, which alters your perception. And the blue-handed guy's coming up, and he's like, blue kryptonite destroys your spirit. So he's about to go do that. But meanwhile, we see Krypto has arrived along with the Metalex, who I guess are on Superman's side, and they attack the group. Krypto grabs Superman and manages to pull him off. And cutting back to yesterday, Jimmy and Lois make their way to the hospital. We see Nimrod, the hunter, is also there, and they make their way into the hospital. We see the Kryptonite gang has met up with Vinny, and they're like, oh, he called his dog. We couldn't beat his dog. It's unbeatable. And Vinny's like, all right, well, I'll do it. And he has these giant Kryptonite chains around his neck, and he's like, all right, you hold this. I'll deal with the dog. And Krypto jumps out. He goes to attack Vinny, and meanwhile, they use the Kryptonite chains to grab onto Krypto and keep him held down. So then we go back to today. Nimrod is attacking Triple Mr. X. Jimmy jumps in, tackles Nimrod down. A fight breaks out, but Lois jumps in and hits Nimrod on the head with a fire extinguisher, knocking him out long enough for them to get him out of there. And they're like, all right, this guy was Mr. Triple X. That was a stage name. What do we do? And they basically are like, we don't know. Superman just told us to come here. So we're just going to wait around until something happens. Back to the other time period, Zadu's got Superman now tied up in kryptonite chains. He throws him down to the ground, makes a huge crater. Cut to the day before yesterday. I'm telling you, this does not get any easier. And we see Lex is working on the same interdimensional machine that the Lex from Earth, 11? Whatever that other planet was with the other Superman, the multi-dimensional cube thing shows up. And Vinny shows up and is like, hey, Lex, this is a cool cube and you're almost done it, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it on because we made a deal. And he's like, I don't even know who you are. So he activates it, and the Super Doom that came out of it in the original story comes out of it again. And he's like, Super Doom's going to go kill Superman now. So at that point, Jimmy and Lois are still just waiting. They're like, hey, the sky's red. Like, we just got to hope for a miracle. Mr. Triple X, his eyes open up. They're glowing. He wakes up. The Legion of Superheroes arrives in the hospital room, praying that they can help. And Super Doom has made his way over to Superman, who is still coated in green kryptonite chains. And he's like, all right, it's all over. I'm ready to kill you, Superman. And Superman's like, I have other plans, as he's clearly sick. Did you get all that? I wonder if I did. There's like 5 time periods we're playing with. Vinny is attacking all of them at once in one master plan, and I am barely keeping afloat. In addition to that, we're pulling back that giant multi-dimensional cube and Super Doom, and it's just... I understand this is pulling from everything Grant Morrison has been doing over the past 15 issues, but dear Lord... You need like all of the books open at once so that you can cross-reference to get this. It is insane. Not bad. It's not a bad story being told, but like, if I were just a casual reader instead of going all in like this, I would immediately be out in terms of this book, because it is not making any sense to anyone who was not there the entire time. So, yeah, good issue if you've been following along, but it is classic Grant Morrison of like, can you keep up? Because I'm going to keep throwing stuff at you. So I'm going to give this one I give it a 7 because I recognize the talent in it, but it is still so up itself where it's just it's a Mobius strip inside a Rubik's Cube inside a multiverse. And I'm barely wrapping my mind around it.